Before we begin, a quick note. This episode includes discussion of suicide and suicidal thoughts. Please listen with care. If you're in the U.S. and need support, you can dial 988 anytime to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pammy Out Loud. I'm your host, Pamela Walsh, and I am very excited because today I'm doing my first ever interview, and it is with my dear friend, Kristin Horstman. Kristin is a sober-minded friend of mine that I met at Sober in the City, Portland, Maine, if I remember correctly. Yes?
Yes.
And Kristin is here with us today, and she's going to talk with me about gray area drinking, which I think was one of the most eye-opening things for me in my journey. So first of all, welcome, Kristin. I'm glad to have you here this morning.
Hi, Pammy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Where are you? I see a beautiful back location. So where are you coming to me from?
Yeah. I happen to be spending a little bit of time on Long Island, New York. My husband and I are both from here, and we come back and visit from time to time, but we primarily live in Phoenix, but we like to get to the Phoenix heat sometimes and spend a little time back by the water. We're both fishes because we grew up by the water and we love it.
And it is plenty hot right now. You know, I'm in Colorado right now, and Austin is registering, I think, 105 degrees today. So,
oh my gosh,
I know the need to get out of that heat, right?
Yeah.
So tell us first of all about your sober journey, and how did you decide that you wanted to quit drinking or get a better handle on alcohol?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for asking. So I drank in the gray area, and we'll talk about what that is. But I drank alcohol for 20 years, and I was predominantly in the gray area for most of that time. But the last few years of my journey, I really got out of the gray area into more of an end stage type of drinking. And it got, so I basically, one of the things I say is that I had alcohol use disorder, and I had it for a couple of years. It was very severe. And it got to the point where I had severe depression, suicidal ideation, overwhelming anxiety, and I couldn't stop drinking, and I completely lost my will to live. So it got to that point where I had to stop. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now.
So Kristin, you said a couple of terms that I'd really like to introduce to my listeners, because I have just briefly touched on my own journey in my podcast so far. And I think that it's really important that, you know, right now, as I say, when I stopped drinking, which was about 5 years ago, and you said that's about the same for you now, I only knew alcohol, AA, and sober. And what I saw it was you were either an alcoholic or you were not an alcoholic, and there wasn't anything in between. And our medical community has really changed that picture right now. And it's introduced this term, alcohol use disorder, where they recognize that it's a spectrum, that we're on a spectrum, which is so much more accurate, really, for all of us, right? I mean, I think for me,
Yes.
I did not identify as an alcoholic. And so what that did was it kept me stuck drinking, if that makes sense, because I would kind of look at my drinking and I would go, I'm not really an alcoholic, so I guess I can keep drinking, even though I knew I was abusing alcohol and it was not serving me well, but I didn't, it was a kind of an either or, not anywhere on the spectrum. So I love that term, alcohol use disorder. And doesn't the DSMV, whatever, the diagnostic thing that the doctors use, I think they've even gotten rid of the word alcoholic, haven't they? Or do you know?
Oh, that's a good question. I can't speak to the DSM necessarily, but Yes, in general, though, the medical community does not use that term. It's very outdated. I don't even think the medical community really has solidified that term. I think it's more of a cultural term than it is a medical one. And but I everything you just said, I could have said verbatim. I too thought that there were two buckets of people, that there were the quote unquote alcoholics and the quote unquote normies. And that also kept me stuck, and it kept me drinking, and it kept me from really wanting to address what was going on with me. And then there was so much shame attached to, no longer being in the quote unquote normie bucket. And, I knew that my drinking had gotten so severe, but I had so much shame around it, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. And then I did try some AA meetings. I didn't really want to go, but I was kind of dragged to them. But I also felt like, okay, I don't know what else to do. And I was so miserable there. And nothing against AA. It was just like at that time, it was just wasn't resonating with me. And I would actually walk out of a meeting more depressed and more anxious and wanting to drink more. And that kept happening. And I'm like, oh my God, if this is the only thing that's going to help me, I'm screwed. Like I'm not gonna make it. And I got so depressed. And that's when the suicidal, ideation and the depression I just kept going down, down and deeper in the hole.
Okay, so
Unfortunately.
y'all that cannot see Kristin yet, but if you're just hearing her, she is a beautiful young woman. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
Sure, I just had a birthday. I just turned 43.
43. Okay. So and in my opinion, you're on the younger end of people that decide, hey, I got to do something different about this. So
Yeah.
when did you first become aware? So tell us, so how did you get sober or choose to, how did you quit drinking? What was your journey?
Yeah. So, it got so when I was about, 35, 36, a lot of things started to escalate in my life. A couple of things were happening at once where our kind of social network was becoming increasingly surrounded by more heavy drinkers. So, we were choosing to spend more time with heavy drinkers, and it's just becoming more and more and more normalized. And, we used to be more involved with like running groups, my husband and I, and then we kind of started to shift over the years to just people who wanted to just get together, and like the focus was around drinking. And I was all for it. I drank in the gray area. Like I said, I started drinking on a regular basis around 18, when I went off to college. And then I just kind of, it ebbed and flowed. There were periods of time where like in 2009, like I started drinking around 2000, and in 2009 I went through some overwhelm in my life, and I definitely started drinking more around then. But I was able to kind of rein it in, and get healthy again. I enlisted the help of a therapist, and I started to focus more on running and things like that. So I did rein it in, and then I just kind of ebbed and flowed and drank on the in the gray area. Fortunately, my husband didn't really drink during those years. He was never a big drinker. He dabbled a little in college, but it wasn't really a big deal to him. And then he started a business in his 20s, and then that became the focus. So he worked so hard, and he worked so many hours that he was barely able to eat or sleep. So he's like, drinking, I don't have time for that. Like, and he could care less, really. So, but I was, partying with my friends on the weekends. I think or when I was cooking dinner, I was drinking wine. And it just became more and more and more over the years. And then, like I said, around my, 35, 36, we've got this social network that's growing. We're spending more time where that's the focus. But then also a series of things in our life started to happen that was creating a significant amount of overwhelm. And then, so my drinking really escalated. And now, so kind of fast forward to like 2017, my drinking started to really escalate. And then in 2018, right at the beginning of the year, like February of 2018, the shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
And I had spent a night.
We do have an explicit rating for this podcast, so you're allowed to say shit.
Oh, okay, great. I never know. I do have a potty mouth in real life, but on interviews, sometimes I try to write it in. But yeah, so the shit really hit the fan in February of 2018. I knew that my drinking was escalating, but I was in complete denial. And I was getting like really bad stomach aches. I had been diagnosed with gastritis, and I was nauseous a lot. I was having trouble eating. But then I had this one night of where I was on the toilet and I was throwing up bile actually all night long. And I never got even like 30 seconds of a break. And it was one of the most miserable nights of my entire life. And I was throwing up bile because I had no food in me. But it was just relentless, and it was happening over and over. And that is really when, the veil was lifted, and it was like, okay, there's no more living in denial. Like, there is an issue here. And then I got some lab work right after that, and my liver enzymes were through the roof, and I believe I was actually in the pancreatitis category. It was just so severe. And then that's when I was kind of dragged to some AA meetings against my will. And then I tried to white knuckle a couple of weeks without drinking. And I just thought, oh, if I just take a couple of weeks off, I'll be fine. I actually have a great picture of me that I share a lot on social media. It's from early March of 2018. And I'm making a green juice. And you can see how puffy my body is. Like, my face was like almost double what it is now. And it wasn't a weight issue. It was the sheer puffiness. I was so dehydrated. My poor body was like clinging onto moisture for dear life, literally. And I'm like, oh, the cognitive dissonance of me making a green juice. And I am at, like the height of my struggle with alcohol. It was unbelievable.
Jen Couch, who sober, says, she calls it the detox to retox, right? Like, which was more green, your face or the juice?
Right.
This thing, like, we go, okay, I'm gonna go to yoga, and I'm gonna detox. I'm gonna do all these green juices and all this stuff, and then the wine o'clock comes around again every afternoon, right? So, what did you do? So then you went from AA. What was your next step? What did you do? What did you find?
Yeah. So, in 2018, like, I wasn't ready to stop drinking. So I didn't really take it very seriously. I was able to think, I kind of white knuckle a little bit of time here and there, but that year it was a lot of up and down. And then in 2019, I was still struggling, and it was still, at that point, it was getting hard to get through a day. I mean, I craved alcohol so much. I craved it as soon as I woke up. And I mean, literally, I was drinking in the morning, and, I would like sneak it, and I would wait for my husband to like take a shower, and then I would run in the garage and like drink. And I knew what I was doing was wrong. Like, the logical part of my brain was like, what is happening here? Like, this is not okay. Like, I would actually get stomach aches because I would know that like what I was doing was wrong. And it was just, it was like an out of body experience, but like I couldn't stop.
Right.
It was like it was like some puppet master was controlling me and walking me into the garage to drink. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And I just lived like that for a long time. And then I just continued to get so depressed. And, and my husband like was trying everything. He was trying so hard to support me and love on me. He really didn't know what to do. But luckily, in 2019, it got to the point where my suicidal depression had gotten so severe. I actually in June of 2019, I tried to hurt myself because I had a really, really overwhelming thing happen, and I just couldn't do it. And I'm like, I'm checking out. I kept telling God every day, like, please take me. Like, I could just go to sleep and not wake up, right? Like, every day I kept saying that, but then there was like a shift. But the day that I had that shift and I actually tried to hurt myself, it was actually the wake up call I needed.
Wow.
And then the next day I was like, I have to take this seriously. So I researched like a crazy person. I was on my computer and I said, I'm going to find something that's going to help me. And I did. I really spent the whole day, and I was like, there was something about like traditional rehab that wasn't resonating with me, kind of like AA wasn't resonating with me. And I was like, I feel like I should go somewhere to get help, but there's something like I have to find what's right for me though. And fortunately, I found this amazing place in the state of Washington, actually off the San Juan Islands. I don't know if you're familiar. They're beautiful little islands right off the coast of Washington state. And it was a husband and wife, and they bought a farm, and then they started their own dual diagnosis center. And they used actually spiritual psychology.
I just want to interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
Those people who are not familiar with the term dual diagnosis, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so it was like everybody who was going there, like they knew it wasn't just substance use disorder. They knew that there were other things to be addressed.
Right.
And yeah, so a lot of the
Many
people,
times, like, the way I understand it is many times people go to, let's say, a rehab, and you go there thinking, oh, it's just alcohol, or it's just drugs, or whatever that you're addressing, but there is some mental health disorder or something else going on in parallel. So you have to treat two conditions at the same time. Is that correct?
yeah, yeah, that's exactly how I would describe it. Yes. And yeah, and there was like the way they described their program on their website, it just felt like there was so much warmth there and actually in dignity. I was looking for dignity because I was just swimming in shame like every waking moment of my life. I was just covered in it. And when I read, what they were offering, so they had a cohorts. They did their program was around cohorts of up to 10 people, and you started and ended together at the same time. So that was really appealing to me. And it wasn't just a revolving door of like, oh, people are just going to show up every day, all day. You had your own room, your own bathroom. You actually had access to your cell phone every other day for about an hour. And I was like, oh, that's really appealing because from what I heard, it was like if you go to rehab, you're kind of just like literally locked away from the world. Like you're just kind of thrown away, and you don't get to communicate with anybody. And there was a lot of shame around that too. Like I couldn't tolerate that. So it was just, and then the spiritual psychology, like when I was reading about that, that sounded really interesting too. And so I called them and I said, I need help. I would like to join your program. They said, we have one in a couple of weeks. And then when I showed my husband, he was like, wow, he was actually really excited for me. And he was so relieved that I was, not only, willing to go to this place, but I was actually excited about it. And so when I showed up there, it was really a positive experience. And it was nice. Yeah, it was nice to have a break. And when I showed up, I was actually, my husband and I were taking a little tour of the grounds. And then you're allowed to have your family member with you up until dinner. And then at dinner, he had to say goodbye. And so we're touring, and it was July in beautiful Washington State. Like on this farm, there's like horses and goats and chickens, and it is so green, and the weather was perfect. So I said goodbye to him, and I went to go join the group, and the group's looking at me, and they're like, wait, are you with us? You don't like work here? Like, no, I'm with you guys. I'm ready to heal. Let's do this. And I was all in, and it was wonderful.
All in kind of person. And that in Portland we were walking into Portland from the hotel just to go to downtown. And I said, so I looked at her and I go, so what's your story? And and she said, do you want the long version or the short version? And I said, well, we're here for 3 days. Let's go for the long version. And 3 days later, we were still walking.
That's right.
Long version. Yeah,
Exactly.
when she gets into someplace, it's so difficult to imagine, when you talk about suicidal ideation and being in that really, really dark place, it is so difficult for me to imagine who you are now, who I know you to be, the joy that just
Right.
bubbles up from you. And also I think about, and I can't remember what's your husband's name?
Evan.
Evan, that's right, Evan. And you guys, you just adore your husband. Y'all have such a cute marriage. Like, it's so fun to see y'all together and to interact with you. So I think it's a really important point to go, yes, there is hope on the other side in wherever you are in your path, because it's almost impossible for me to imagine that you were in that dark place that long ago. But that's what alcohol does.
Yeah.
Right. It creates these negative. I mean, why are we surprised we get addicted to it? It's an addictive substance.
Right.
Even if you're not physically addicted to it. I mean, my own path, I think I've considered myself, I was certainly psychologically addicted to it. I didn't, when I quit drinking, I didn't have detox or any of that kind of stuff. But man, I was so overwhelmed by the fact that, when I stopped trying, when I really thought, okay, I'm not going to drink, how much of my thought processes was just consumed by, I really want to drink. I can't have a beer this afternoon. I want a margarita when we go to Mexico. How's that going to look? All of those things. The psychological part of it is huge. Okay.
Yeah.
So go to this place in Washington. You
Yeah.
and you were there for how long?
About 30 days.
30 days. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when did you get involved with Jolene Park?
Yeah. So
Everyone knows what Park is too.
oh yes, yes. She's amazing and she's changed my life. So after the program, I went back into the real world, and even though like my mental health was much improved, I still had the cravings. I was still dealing with the physical part. So, we talk about psychology, but there is a big physical piece to alcohol. Think about it. It's a physical substance. It goes in your physical body and it has physical effects. So everybody's physiology is affected the second you put that in your body. And what I didn't realize is that, the cravings piece was still there. So I did relapse after I left that wonderful place in Washington. And, within a couple of months, really, or even within probably weeks, and then a couple of months, I was really starting to struggle again. And then fortunately, right around the like the late fall of 2019, again, because my husband is so supportive, he was really trying to throw the kitchen sink at this. He's like, how can I help my wife? So he actually found, first of all, he found Annie Grace's book. And when I read Annie Grace's book, so many things started to click. And that really opened, my world. And she's talking about the neuroscience of alcohol. And nobody had been talking about that before. And then that was starting to make sense. And it seemed like as soon as I found Annie Grace, then all of a sudden the kind of sober community on Instagram, which was much smaller in 2019, but it was there and it was building and it was growing. Then it was like the floodgates opened. Then I found Jolene Park's TED Talk shortly after that. She has a TED Talk called Gray Area Drinking. So she explains it.
I want to know that I will put in our show notes links to Jolene Park's TED Talk, which is really one of the most watched TED Talks that there is on this concept of gray area drinking. And yeah. She didn't coin the term, right? For a long time,
no.
I actually coined the term gray area drinking. So
correct.
I'll let you. I'll put it in the TED Talk as well as Annie Grace's a book link, which was life-changing for many of us. So
yeah,
sorry to interrupt.
Absolutely. No, it's okay. So
the term came from, where did you tell me it came from?
Yeah, so it came from the medical community. It came from the American Dietetics Association. So the guidelines for caloric intake were up for review in 2010. So there was a researcher named Deborah Dawson, and she led this team to look at people's calories for an entire year. And the goal of this study was to look at how can we want to optimize health, and we want to look at disease prevention and disease prevention across the board. So when they took people's data for an entire year, and they included the alcohol calories because those calories should count, right? And they do break down into glucose. So, so she was very specific about making sure those calories were included. And it's after they really sat back and looked at all of the data, they said, oh my gosh, drinking really is a spectrum. So it was that team that came up with the gray area drinking concept. And gray area drinking is basically this wide spectrum that's between two smaller extremes of drinkers. So there's one extreme, and when we say extreme, we just mean smaller group, where it's called the now and again drinker. Now and again drinking, that's really the person who maybe shows up to a wedding, they drinks a little bit of champagne because they're toasting the groom and bride. They're not drinking to get drunk. They're just having that toast, taking a few sips, putting it down, and then they may not drink again for a month or a couple of months until maybe the next event. And it's just not, not important to them. It's not really on their radar. It's not really a big part of their life. There is a definition though, where it's basically, you have to have 2 or less drinks per week. To me, that's still too much, but at least we do have a definition around that. And then the other extreme is that end stage drinker. If you have organ failure, cirrhosis, if you're going to in or outpatient, if you need medical intervention, that is not the gray area. That is outside of the gray area. But really,
we used to think of as, okay, that's the alcoholic, right? And that was the that I always had was I wasn't there, So then I only knew two boxes, right? I was either going to be an alcoholic at that end, or I was a now and again drinker. And I knew that I wasn't a now and again drinker, right? So
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. So, really 90% of drinkers live in this gray area. And, you could kind of go up and down the spectrum. I was all over that spectrum throughout those 20 years.
Mhm.
And every single label that you would use to call yourself whatever kind of drinker you want to call yourself, normie, social drinker, moderate drinker, dependent drinker, alcohol use disorder, alcoholic, all of those words are gray area.
Yeah, yeah.
Binge
Mhm.
drinker,
Mhm.
all of those words are gray area.
Okay.
So yeah, and it's just like because those terms are so vague. If you ask 5 different people what moderate drinking is, they will give you 5 different definitions. If you ask, same thing. If you ask 5 different people what an alcoholic is, you're going to get wildly different definitions. These are vague terms, and we can really say.
I was going to say we've even people I think use the term a normal drinker. Well, what is normal, right? Like if you think about it,
Yeah,
we believe, I believe, I mean, alcohol is a poison. It's a poison to our body, right? So
yeah,
it's not normal to drink. It's not normal to drink poison, right? So
no,
it's interesting because, is it normal to drink a glass of wine every day? Is that normal? Just because we've normalized it does not mean
right,
healthy, right, correct, acceptable, right?
right, right. The way I look at it is it may be common, but it is not normal. Normal and common are two different things. Exactly.
That's a better way. It may be common, but not normal. That's exactly
Right.
right. Great.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I look at it. Yeah. And we can say like if you're drinking, you're on the spectrum because there is no safe amount.
Mm-hmm.
There's no safe amount. Full stop.
Interestingly enough, Canada has now come out and said that, right? The Canadian dietary guidelines have now
Yep.
said no acceptable, healthy or acceptable consumption of alcohol. I don't
Right.
think U.S. is going to get there because of big alcohol, and it's a huge lobby, and I don't think we're ever going to get the point where we say no, this isn't okay. But even the U.S. standards have gone way down from where they used to be. And, I like to tell people for a while it was women could have one glass a day, right? Wasn't that a typical? And glass was as helping was 5 ounces of wine, right? You show me a woman that pours herself a glass of wine. It ain't happening. I thought they made the red wine glasses big because so I could, I said, oh, I only had a glass. It was like freaking half the bottle of red wine. It was in the glass.
Just buy a bigger glass.
I had a glass of wine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Women, if they have more than 7 servings, like they don't even, I don't even like the word glass because again, people don't understand. They're not sitting there measuring. No one in this world is measuring. Maybe bartenders if they have to, but
right now to hit the pause button and go pour yourself 5 ounces, get a measuring cup out and pour out 5 ounces. And just tell me, like, is that your serving of wine? Do you ever drink? Even at a restaurant, they don't just give you 5 ounces.
Right. Exactly. And so once women hit 7 servings or more a week, that is heavy, risky drinking.
Wow.
I mean, how many people do that in, maybe 20, you're right, a day, 24 to maybe 48 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's, it's if you're drinking, you're on the spectrum. That's it. There's no safe amount. Full stop. That's it.
Okay, so you saw Jolene's talk on TED Talk, which is so interesting, and I will, like I said, put a link in the show notes. And then, did you decide to get involved with her program, or what happened coaching? Because Kristin's a coach now, right? So tell me.
Yeah. Well, so it took me, a whole year after I watched that TED Talk. I was still struggling, actually, believe it or not. But right after I watched that TED Talk, the pandemic happened.
Mm.
and some other things lined up for me. So in 2020, I actually made some of my best strides that year. A couple of things happened. Like my husband had the brilliant idea of getting a dog. So he's like, you want a puppy? I found a puppy. And I'm like, I'm such a dog person. I'm like, okay. So we decided to get a puppy and she came in January of 2020, which was, so funny in hindsight. And then I started to just like get so happy again, like to have this little animal, something to focus on, take me out of my kind of wallowing in my misery and have her this cute little thing that I had to take care of. She helped me. I was still white knuckling at that point, but she helped me to not at least want to drink. And even though I was still white knuckling, at least I was gaining, a lot of days and starting to add up weeks even, because I didn't want to, put her in harm's way. And I didn't want to scare her either. Because I know that, animals, like they look to our emotions and they feel our emotions so deeply. Mm-hmm. So that was a huge help. That same month, I found a fantastic group of therapists, and they were teaching me DBT skills, dialectical behavior therapy, which was amazing.
Dialectical behavior
therapy. Yep, which was created by Marsha Linehan, I believe in the 70s. Okay. And that was a really helpful program. They talk about, they have modules under that program, and it's like the stress tolerance, emotional regulation, interpersonal relationships, and mindfulness. So they were teaching me these skills, and then it was great because as soon as shutdown happened, they just flipped right to Zoom. So I didn't have a break from that. So I'm getting therapy, and then they were actually teaching classes in a group. And then when shutdown happened, it was actually one of the best things that could have happened in my journey, because I really needed to be separated from all of those heavy drinking friends and groups.
And that's where you and I parallel quite a bit, because my timing is very similar to yours in that I did the Sober Sis program in November of 2019. And so in 2020, I was just starting their alcohol-free living program in January of 2020. And then, of course, shutdown happened. And I say all the time, thank God, literally, thank God.
Yes.
That I was already in a program that was and connected online with other women who were going through this, because if I had been drinking during COVID and the shutdown, I'm sure my drinking would have increased substantially. It would have started earlier in the day. And so to not only have that, I've already hit the pause button, and I already had support in place. And on top of that, it gave me isolation. I mean, I was the kind of drinker, I was the happy drinker that wanted, I was always saying, the instigator, I'd say, let's go for happy hour. Let's get. And so it isolated me and protected me from all of those social challenges of, okay, I want, when I'm with other people, I want to have a drink in my hand. And it was COVID in that way was a gift to me that period of time.
I agree. Same. And so it was so helpful.
You really hit the accelerate button. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Exactly. It was like, so when shutdown happened, I'm like, wait, I get to just stay at home with my loving husband and my cute little puppy. I'm like, okay. Like, this is great. And then I still get me connected to my therapist on Zoom. I'm like, okay.
My quilting machine was like, oh, this is great. I can quilt all the time. Quilters were made for the pandemic. It's what I said.
Right. Oh, that's so funny. I was walking like a maniac. I'm like, watch it. The walking is clutch right now. This is great. This is like all day long. I was like walking, and I was in Arizona, and I'm like getting the sunshine, and it was, before the heat. So it was like so perfect. I'm getting to know my neighbors. Like those are like people I was actually socializing with and getting to know. And, we felt okay because we were outside and we could keep a little distance on the street. And yeah, it was great. And then, so all these things started to really line up, and I'm like actually accumulating days, weeks, and even months of sobriety. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I still did relapse though. I still found a way to get that alcohol because I was still dealing with the cravings. But then fast forward to kind of towards the end of 2020, I had a really good run from I would say from about August through the end of November, where I really actually took a really long break during those months. And then even in October, I actually cleaned up my diet a lot too, because I started to get into the pizza and the ice cream and all these other things. And I was like, oh, this is like not looking good. So I really was like on my diet in October, and then even in early November. But then towards the mid to end of November, I went through some overwhelm again. I had some things happening in my life. And then I was starting to like, and I gravitate towards alcohol again, like started to dabble a little. But then Christmas week, I was really starting to actively sneak it in again. But I told myself, well, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Like clearly, like I just took several months off. I don't have a problem. Like it's not that bad. But my husband really started to notice something was wrong. But I was denying it. And it only took really a matter of days before I really went off the rails again. So what happened was on January 1st, 2021, we were home and I had snuck alcohol into the house and I was drinking at home during the day. And right in broad daylight, I was sitting on my patio on a chair and I passed out. And the next thing I know, my husband is like shaking me, waking me up. And he's like, what happened? And I'm like, yeah, what happened? And he looked terrified and I was terrified. And then that night, as the alcohol was leaving my body, I was like, I am done. I know I'm done. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I learned the lesson that it wasn't time. Time by itself does not heal this issue we have with alcohol, with our brain, being so hooked on it.
See this, and what's really cool, Kristin, and I think it's both the challenge and the gift of giving up alcohol. We think that alcohol is the problem. Well, alcohol is just something that we've done to numb the problem or to not stay away from it, avoid looking at it, right? Because when you take away alcohol, that's when the work really begins on who you are and what are the things you need to address in your life, right? And we think, oh, I just need to stop drinking alcohol. Well, that's the symptom. That's not really what's going on. It was when you have to look into your heart and into your life and say, what are the changes that I need to make? Which, what you come to realize is this is a lifelong work in progress. You're never done. It's not just 30 days alcohol free or being in a rehab or doing a 90-day program or any of the different things. Those are great ways to jumpstart into it. But they're not the way that, what you realize is, holy crappuccino, I've got a lot of work to do on myself and who I am, which is, like I said, scary and a gift all at the same time.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly how I would describe it. I totally agree with you. And so so that night I was like, okay, I'm done. The next day, I hit the computer again and I was determined. Every waking second, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? What is the final solution? I felt like I had been doing everything at that point. And I'm like, there is something out there that I am missing. So I revisited Annie Grace's webpage. I went back to, Laura McCowan. She was another, trailblazer of that era. Love her.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Love her. I did her Bigger Yes program in the fall of 2020, which was really helpful. I love that. And then I revisited Jolene's TED Talk and her website. And I was like, one of these three women is going to help me. That's it. I decided one of those three women. And then
Jolene Park, Annie Grace, and
Laura.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
And we have all this in the show notes for you, because this is also the great gift about this, finding your path as an alcohol-free person, is there are so many fantastic programs. It used to be there was AA and that was it. You had a rehab model and not much else. And now there are so many places that you can get online support. You can, without going, okay, I have to check myself into rehab or I have to go to some other place. So yeah, I'll put those links in the show notes so everybody can take a look at, know that it's not a matter of I have to pack my bags and go away. There's some great resources out there. Okay. So you're trying to, one of these three women are going to help you.
Yes. So when I was on Jolene,
some friends that are talking.
I do see a couple of little furry little cuties. Yeah. So when I was on Jolene's website, I saw that she was talking about cravings and anxiety and healing the craving brain. And she was talking about the missing physiological pieces. And that was it. I was like, oh my gosh, it was like this light bulb. And then because in her TED talk, not only does she, tell everybody about gray area drinking and what it is, she talks about her very famous Nourish acronym. And she talks about the cravings piece and the difference between the logical brain and the animal brain. And it turns out, we've got this, gut brain connection, and we've got our logical brain, our prefrontal cortex is right here. And 20% of that communication is what we call top down, but 80% of the communication is coming from back here where our animal brain is, our limbic brain. 80% is actually going up. So that's called bottom up. So 80% of the cravings and the anxiety I was feeling was coming from the body, not the mind.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like, whoa, mind blowing. Like once that clicks, once you realize that, because so many programs out there are too focused on the mind. So they're only hitting that 20%. Hey, it's an important 20% and it's got to be addressed because you want that comprehensive approach. But if you're not addressing the body, the physiology piece, you're leaving 80% on the table. And I was like, that is why I keep returning to alcohol and why I keep relapsing over and having these day ones over and over and over again.
Right.
So yeah, within days, I had basically 48 hours. Later, I had a discovery call with her. She's talking about, just 20-minute calls. Let's see if coaching is a right fit for you. And as soon as I was on that call with her, I was starting, share my story. And she looked at me and she said, "Oh yeah, you're a gray area drinker, and I've helped hundreds of women like you." And I'm like, I can be helped. Because
so that's another key point, Kristin, is that the thing that struck me when I got involved in the Sober Sis program was all of the sudden I started seeing women like me, right? Like I had this image that, I was, you had to be laying in the gutter. I was unable to go to work, this.
Yeah.
Complete, as we say, the rock bottom moment kind of thing. Some people do have to have those before they change. I mean, how sick is this? I remember a time in my life where I prayed for a rock bottom moment because I didn't know there was another way to change my drinking unless I had one of those, right? And so to all of the sudden to go, hey, there's another way to do this is such a huge thing, right? And now these beautiful programs that take you there.
Yeah. I mean, I was accumulating rock bottom moments left and right. It didn't stop me. I mean, it took me almost 3 years after that horrific night on the toilet, throwing up bile for hours and hours and hours to stop drinking.
Yeah.
I mean, and I had, and then it was a year and a half later that I tried to hurt myself. So, I mean, they weren't helping. They weren't getting through to me, those rock bottom moments. I just kept accumulating more and more time was going by. And, so when I look at this, this alcohol use disorder, this issue, to me, it's like, once I really got into the physiology piece, it's really a chemistry problem we're solving. Once you really want to stop, once you're ready, your window of tolerance for all of those rock bottoms are just, done. It's like, okay, now we've taken alcohol out and I want to repair the brain. I want to heal these cravings. I want to heal this, I want to rewire this anxiety. I don't want to feel this anxiety anymore and this depression. And then it becomes, it's like, okay, well, you've taken the alcohol out, but now we have to rebalance. We have to recalibrate. Because it was used to having it all the time. So if you take it out, and then it's like, that's when the cravings come in because your animal brain is like, hey, where's that thing I was getting every day? And it would be the same, like if you suddenly took out, if you're a caffeine drinker and you suddenly stop drinking caffeine, or if you eat sugar every single day and you suddenly just take out the sugar, it's like your body, it gets used to that thing and it gets hooked on it. So when you take it out, your body's going to send you very painful signals to continue to go get it, because by repeating it over and over and over again and consuming it over and over and over again, you've told your brain and your body that is important and it's going to be looking for it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So one of the things that you talked about here that I really want to deep dive into you. And this is so interesting. And I can't believe what we are like already 45 minutes into this. So I want to invite you back too, because you talked about the Nourish acronym, which Jolene Park talks about in her TED Talk. And this is for the listeners now, a little teaser. This for me was really a game changer. And it talks about, and Kristin is a bit of an expert in the nervous system. That's kind of your jam, is to talk about the system and the ways to address those things, because a lot of what the drinking of the alcohol is we're trying to impact our nervous system. That's what we're doing.
Yes.
We don't like the way we feel, and we want to change the way we feel, right? That's
exactly.
We don't even think about it, but that's what we're doing when we like, I need a drink. I want a drink. It's because our nervous system doesn't like where we are right now, and we need to artificially do something to it to change it. So the Nourish acronym is a way of changing your nervous system in the moment, doing certain things in the moment, daily practices that allow you to change your nervous system through your external environment and through the things you're putting into your body other than alcohol, and the way you breathe, and the activities that you engage in. So that's
right.
Teaser alert, because we won't have time to get into that today. Okay. You are, and so you went through her program, and now you are coaching women. Do you do men too, or just?
Yes. I have had male clients, yes, but predominantly women. But yes, I have had males.
Are you do it online, or how do you work?
I do both. I've actually had both in-person clients if they happen to live in the same town as me, and I do virtual, but mostly virtual. But yeah, I've had the pleasure of having a couple of in-person clients, which is super fun. But doing it on Zoom is very seamless as well. So the way the coaching works is that we would meet on Zoom once a week, and then we actually had an email check-in every single day. And I teach them all about the nervous system, how to notice those cravings, notice the anxiety, and then I give them tools for their nervous system that are physiology based, good for their physiology, good for their nervous system, so that they can regulate their nervous system with these tools, these somatic tools. Soma means body, instead of alcohol. Because like we were saying earlier, it may be common to regulate your body and your emotions and your nervous system with alcohol, but it is not normal to regulate your body with alcohol. So we have to rewire that.
Good. Say that again. It is.
So it is.
It may be. Say again. It may be
common to regulate your nervous system and your emotions with alcohol, but it is not normal to regulate your body with alcohol.
Love that.
Back to yeah.
Write that down, people. Write that down.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, it's just amazing. Once we take the alcohol out, and then we start to really nourish, to use Jolene's term, to nourish the nervous system, it's like life becomes technicolor. It's you can really start to boost your pleasure chemicals again. Your pleasure chemicals get so depleted because of the alcohol. And then when we take the alcohol out, our brain is really depleted. So part of the coaching is I help you repair your brain chemicals. They're very depleted. So I help you build them back up again. And once your brain chemicals are built back up, we were designed to have everything we need in life. We have GABA, and GABA is our anti-anxiety chemical, but alcohol depletes it. We have serotonin, and that is our happiness chemical. So we have to, so I work with the brain. I help people boost their dopamine and their acetylcholine as well. And when you really hit those 4 very important neurotransmitters or brain chemicals, then you start to feel amazing. And then the cravings for alcohol completely go away. And it's the biggest gift of your entire life. And that's been my experience.
And that is awesome. And that is so interesting, because I see you, like I think about that. I still see you at the pool at Scottsdale at Sober in the City. And when Evan got back from his long hike, when you showed me, and you were like a little kid, like, oh my, he's here, and look how handsome he is, and I think, there is an infectious joy that comes from you that, like I said, that makes it just so hard to believe that you were in that deep dark place. And I'm
Oh my
so
God.
grateful that you found the tools to get out of that place, and the work that you're doing now to help other people to see that. It's interesting because one of my favorite quotes by Brene Brown is, who is also alcohol free.
Yes.
She also talks about, you can't, a lot of people drink to numb feelings, right? And she said, here's the deal though, people, you cannot selectively numb feelings. When you are numbing the bad ones, you're also numbing the good ones. You think you're enhancing them, but it doesn't work that way. So you don't have control over what's going down for you. And so, to see that, for me personally in my own marriage, I feel that way too. It's like, my drinking, it wasn't like it was all bad. Like I like to say that, and a lot of it though was impacted by the mood that I was in when I started drinking, right? So if I was in a good mood, you got happy fun, Pam, probably over the top, Pam. Let's just put it out there. But if I was the least bit sad, lonely, angry, any one of those kind of more negative tendencies, alcohol amplified that side of me too. And so it also would cause me, if I'm a little bit off, then I'm looking at my marriage and it's off, and I'm looking at my health, it's off, and I'm looking at my friendships and they're off, like, whatever. It just really sent me down that dark path, right? So yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's great. Well, I would love to have you back on again if you're willing to.
I would love to go back. I can't wait.
Deep dive into the acronym Nourish, which can be such, I think, a game changer. It's just this check-in with yourself that you can grab a hold of and find support and help in. So, would you be willing to come back for me again?
I can't wait.
Awesome.
Let's get it on our calendar.
All right. I thank everybody so much. I'm going to wrap this up, and I appreciate y'all staying with us. Please check out the show notes. There'll be links not only to the women that we talked about and their landmark works, but also how you can reach out and get Kristin. Kristin, you are available on Instagram. Is that right?
Yep.
Find you before I wrap that up. How can those?
So, on Instagram, you can find me at Coach Kristin Horstman, and also on my website, KristinHorstman.com.
Kristin is with two I's. Kristin with two I's, right. And Horstman, like horseman, but take out the E and put in the T. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, there's a funny little T in there. We don't know why, but it's just there. And yeah, and then I call my business Brighten Your Life Coaching, because when you take alcohol out, your world gets brighter.
And I love your what is your chasing sunsets now?
Yes. So I actually trademarked a phrase called sunsets of the new happy hour, because that first year that I stopped drinking, I realized that one of the things I was gravitating towards was sunsets. And I was like, every night, like, I just couldn't wait to like see the colors. And it was like I was chasing them. It was like I have to look at the clock and say, okay, what time is sunset tonight? Where am I going to be? Do I have a pretty view? And I would just sit there, and I would actually get like high from just watching sunsets. And I would, that natural high, kind of like a runner's high. And I was doing it night after night after night. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have totally rewired this kind of happy hour time. From like 4 to 7, I was always drinking and, going to happy hour or drinking with dinner. Like many people do. And I was like, oh my gosh, now that I've taken the alcohol out, I'm actually like, the sunsets have become my version of happy hour. And, and it's cool because there's a lot, and we can talk about this next time, but there's a lot of science behind, sunset time and that window of time, and how much the nervous system is really looking for nourishment. That is like a key time of the day when the day chapter ends and the night chapter begins. And for me, it's chasing sunsets, but for you, it could be, reading your favorite book, or painting, or cooking a meal, or going for a walk, etc. So whatever you can do to nourish your nervous system during that time, instead of, putting alcohol in your body, it makes a big shift.
Well, thank you so much. And you will be back with us. I'm looking forward to it. I just want to remind everybody this is the importance of speaking out loud. When you speak out loud, you speak your truth, you help other people share their truths and see the bright light in their lives. And just remember, gritting your teeth gives you TMJ. So peace out, everybody. Love y'all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Pammy.